So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my absence yesterday. I have got the blood work, I've got everything and fingerprints and what have you. So, I'll be posting those later on as to why I was absent from last night. Now, what do we know? What don't we know? What do we need to know? And what will we find out? It's a little bit quiet across the board. Mr. Donald Trump doesn't really have much to do today, which means that he has got the potential to start playing the old Trump, truth social posts. So whoever's wound him up or someone saying something stupid, but Japan seems to be doing some good things. They want to engage in the old soya bean trade with Mr. Donald Trump. Of course, China's been a bit of a pain in the ass with it, but never mind. In other words, we don't really have anything to be too concerned about until we need to be concerned about it when it decides to come up. And that's what I mean by Donald Trump and his truth social post. So keep an eye out on that. But what have we got going off today? Well, crypto, it's behaving a little bit differently. A lot of people are speculating crypto's done. That is it. There's no movement. I mean, we just had word that a few Japanese companies, I think it's Japanese companies, Asian overall, are not really down for the Bitcoin treasury. Why not? Everyone else seems to be doing it. They just think it's not right it doesn't sit in line with the philosophy for investors, and, the volatility is just too much. Shut up, man. What are you talking about? Bitcoin's not volatile. A standard 25, 30% drop from its highs or whatever. It's just standard work in crypto. But the real question is, what on earth is going on with regards to gold, and what is important to understand about this move on gold right now and what it can actually mean? So we're going to break all of that logic down in today's live stream. And then, of course, we've got big news regarding Google. They are now going to partner up with another company to start creating cloud computing services. And that's really important because the tech market is relying on news like that. And when you hear news like that, it means that billions of dollars are going to be put to work. And investors make the assumption that if money is being put to work, that equally means a return is going to be generated. And fundamentally, earnings per share earnings are going to be what shareholders are looking for. So that should be an interesting story once we dive into it. But with that being said, let's get with the program, understand what's going on, a quick overview of everything across the board, just to keep you guys aligned with what you need to be aware of. And then by the time I'm done with that, you guys should be ready to trade. So let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen, and break it all down. Here we go. So stocks, it's all over the spot. I mean, we have had earnings, but we got a big earnings announcement today, ladies and gentlemen. No, it's not Netflix or anything like that. It's the controversial Tesla. Let's go over and have a look at that bad boy. As it stands right now, Tesla is currently at the open. It's not gapping up, neither is it gapping down. I'm not really seeing anything. But we do have this very interesting vector over here, which I would like to see Tesla try and claim. Now, if there is any word that they're going to miss out on any of their earnings as such, then that's not going to be a welcome thing. Now, if you did look at the post last night, you guys have asked me to have a look at a couple of stocks that I'm going to give you fundamentals on. I've got a list right here in front of me, and I'm going to be going over those stocks. So make sure that you comment if I've actually touched up on the stock that you want me to talk about. And if there are any more stocks that you want me to dive into and give you a little bit of a quick breakdown on, comment in the comments of this live stream. Obviously not in this chat, but in this replay of this live stream, and I'll be able to get that done for you in future live streams. So let's get with the program. Macroeconomically speaking, guys, we know that gold has taken a bit of a tumble to the downside. And the reason why gold is coming down is, of course, there's a lot behind it. We haven't really had any issues with geopolitical tensions. I mean, yesterday, there was the story that Trump and Putin meeting together has been postponed. So that's not really great news right now if we're going to understand the idea between a Russia and Ukraine war. But there's a lot of things happening in regards to US government shutdown. And of course, we've got this story with the idea that interest rates might, there's a little bit of a hawkish, dovish tone, more leaning to hawkishness, because they're expecting that CPI data coming out on Friday is going to be a bit higher. That's no good. If you want to cut interest rates, you need to start seeing that the economy has not got really any inflation. Now, Trump says inflation's gone. Okay, cool. If it's gone, then fine. We should be cutting going into this meeting in the next 8 days' time, 7 days' time. Let me just make sure of that. Hold on. FOMC, 7 days time, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are new, make sure you look at the TV screen behind me to my left, which is your right, and just do what it says. It's subscribe. It costs you nothing, but I'm going to give you some games, so hopefully I'll earn the subscription. So let's get with it. So, of course, the main issue that we've got here is when you read this information, okay, it gives you an overview of where everybody's head is at. So Netflix hasn't done too good because they've got a dispute in this story with Brazil. So if we go over to Netflix right now, and this is going to help you understand where liquidity is going. Netflix right now is currently gapping down at the open, and it's down at $1,150 from a high of $1,241. That is a big drop for Netflix, and you can see it's just given back all of these gains, and it's now going to be opening at $1,150 a share. Now, the great thing is this story here. It says here, Alphabet gained after a report that Google owner is in talks with Anthropic PBC about a deal for cloud computing services valued in the high tens of billions of dollars. So let's just go and have a look at where we are with Google right now. So check this out. I'll go to Google. Technically, it's doing fantastic. It's just climbing. All right, little consolidation. And the good thing is, and take this into consideration when I talk about your stock, if I do actually talk about it. At the bottom, you can see that volume is very, very light. And volume is light in sense of the pullback, okay? So if the volume is light on the pullback, it implies that there is somewhat support. There's no real selling happening, but there's not really any accumulation happening or too much buying to say, oh my God, yeah, we're going to sustain ourselves to the upside. But this partnership is only going to do one good thing. Alphabet at the bottom, you can see we've got quarterly earnings. All you need to be mindful of when you're dealing with a company, especially a stock company, is to focus on the quarterly earnings results. Now, you can see December 31st, 2024, they did 32% on earnings and 12% on sales. The next quarter, 26% on earnings and 12% on sales. And the final quarter, 24% on earnings and 14% on sales. What are we seeing here? We're seeing consistently that we've got good sales. Equally, the earnings are starting to show a bit of a contraction, but everything is positive. Now, with this little business venture that Google are getting into in providing cloud computing services, that is naturally going to be fueling the value of the company, but more so the projection of what the earnings per share is going to be in the future. That is naturally going to be fueling movement to the upside in the tech market. Now, it's not just Google that's involved in tech. So if we just go and have a look at Google's price action in the pre-markets, you can see that Google's doing very well with a big gap up to the upside, near enough at its all-time high. Let me just confirm that. Are we at all-time highs with Google? Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen, we are at all-time highs with Google. And of course, that is great news for the tech market. It needs that sort of information. That information equally is going to be served into cryptocurrency. Now, everyone has been talking about the idea that everyone has come out of gold and then they're going into crypto. All right. Remember, gold is deemed as a safe haven asset. So geopolitical, but more importantly, interest rates going up. Priest, I know you'll have a challenge on that, but never mind. But the idea is that investors are starting to rotate. However, this article over here does dive into something very interesting. It says here, market sentiment remains nervous. All right. It says our view remains that a sell-off from these levels would be healthy as it would clean up some long overhangs and provide us an opportunity to buy. In other words, the move to the downside will welcome dip buyers because we are in an easing cycle. Money's going to be cheaper in the future. It doesn't mean that the market's going to slump now. All right. When things start to crack, then yeah, we can assume that the markets are going to start correcting and pulling back. All right. But it doesn't look like the market is actually pulling back with aggression. Like I said on Google's price action just a second ago. Where is it? The volume. Go to the daily itself. Wait. The weekly. This is the weekly chart. They've not been selling off, and we've had quite a bit of information about tariffs and all of that. They're not really coming away from the stock. They're consolidating, but they're not really selling above average, and that's good news for us, okay? Now, with that being said, just quickly diving into the story that if we're going to be in the dip buying situation, what's going on with crypto? Well, let's just have a little deep dive into that. Check this out. Bitcoin ETFs break 4-day 1 billion outflow streak as Bitcoin holds 108K. So Bitcoin's seen a lot of... They've been selling quite a bit. Going into the BlackRock ETF, we can see there's some maneuvering going off, but Is there anything to be worried about going over into the balance of the ETF? Now, given that the UK is now allowing people from the UK to invest in the Bitcoin ETF, well, the ETP, but you can see that we're at a balance of 803,287. BlackRock holds $85 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's nothing to be, it's something to pay attention to. And that is a lot of value locked into Bitcoin. Now, let's just quickly just put this into perspective, all right? A lot of people saying that gold has now made the drop to the downside, but it's only tapped its 50 EMA. Come on, man. There was going to be an instance when it was going to do that, but gold is giving you a clue onto what to expect. Do I think gold's going to keep going up? Most definitely. All you got to look at is this red vector candle that hasn't been fully recovered. Remember what I spoke about in the video, which is trade this candle? Well, this is on the higher time frame. You can see one on the 15-hour time frame. There is a red vector candle that hasn't been recovered yet. Okay. Now, have investors come out of gold and started going into other risk on assets? That could be the case, because if we go over to Bitcoin and have a look at that, you can see that Bitcoin has been very, very treacherous. It's been going up and down, and there's not really been that much movement in crypto. Go to the smaller timeframes on Bitcoin, and you can see bright as day that the only volatility that was present was this move right here. We covered this move yesterday, okay? So if I just go and show you what happened, I gave out this projection yesterday to the Platinum members. If you want to check this out, pinned to the top of the chat is the access for that membership. Just check it out and what you receive. And here is an example of. So I provide setups on 6 asset classes. It is kind of hard to pay attention to everything. We got Euro, we got gold, we got NASDAQ, we got Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. But they are all positively correlated to the idea of the dollar, okay? So if the dollar's going down, logic says that things are going to be going up, all right? Now, you can see here that we were looking for Bitcoin to break out from the 109,109.55 to finalize at the target of 113,083. All right. You can see what they did. They came and cleared that range and cleared 113,986. Was it on the nose? Oh, 83. So yeah, you would have earned yourself a penny or two or more. So that was great news for the guys who traded on Bitcoin. Minimal drawdown, red vector candle, shift out to the upside, happy days. Okay. We did the same thing on Ethereum. So we were looking for the same logic with Ethereum to come into the 3,886 region, come back into that red vector candle recovery. See that? Yeah. We want to see them try and claim back up towards the 4,003 point. And then we saw Ethereum yesterday do a good job of going all the way to 4,109. They even come back into the final recovery of the vectors. And there you go, minimal drawdown on that play. They didn't even sweep the Asian session low, which was quite interesting to say the least. And then finally, we had Solana. We were looking for Solana to try and do the same thing, hold at the 185.72 to come back up towards the red vector candle recovery zone, 191.70. And in the end, what we got with Solana was a pump towards 197. So I may have been a little bit conservative with my targets as such, but you just can't trust crypto. And the problem we got with cryptocurrency right now is, but very importantly, it's holding at these psychological levels. Now, you've got to remember, we're going into what? Friday, CPI data. If the data is going to be bad, you want everything going up. You want absolutely everything to move up today and tomorrow, okay? Why? Because if the data is good, okay, then everything should come down because there would be an anticipation that the readings are going to come in lower. That means interest rates are going to get cut. That means money's going to be cheaper. That means I can buy now that the dip has happened. But if everything's going up and then we've got the CPI reading, only a miracle would then say that people would be content at buying at those premium levels, which is not too far from the all-time highs. Look at where NASDAQ is relative to where the S&P, where everything is. Look, NASDAQ, you're just stalling inside of this range. Look how close you are to your all-time high, and Google is about to break its all-time high. There's fuel right now in the tech market, okay? Look at the S&P. They're not too far away, and Tesla earnings are coming out. If Tesla does great and this information about Google is welcomed by investors, which it is, okay, man, we're going to be going into the reading of CPI at all-time highs. That, for me, is a problem because they're going to keep buying at that point? No, they're going to want to bid for it. So you really want the market to drop. Will that happen? Well, we've just had some great news about Google. So investors are going to be like, screw it, we've got tomorrow, we can drop it tomorrow. And then they will just keep marking assets higher, okay? Now, everyone has been saying that there's been a rotation from gold going into Bitcoin, okay? You've got to remember when articles like this come out, say that Asian stock exchanges slam the door on Bitcoin treasury companies because it's too risky. Okay. Bitcoin is a high risk asset class. And the reason why investors were going into gold because of it's a safe haven, geopolitical tensions, interest rates and whatever, and the accumulation of gold by China as well. That helps. All right. But if they see Bitcoin as a risky asset, that means when there is nothing to be concerned about, Bitcoin principally should be going up. If the ETF outflows have succeeded 1 billion, that means investors are having to transition into safer havens. Now, the US government shutdown is still a story. We're going into the 22nd day nearly, okay? And that is a problem. Now, it's the first time they've done this in a very long time, which naturally, if investors see that the US government is still shut down, is it going to start hurting the economy? Well, 2 weeks, so 15 days of a US government shutdown costs them $5.6 billion. 0.1 to 0.2% of the GDP. They broke the reading of the GDP by by nearly 5 points, nearly. It's nothing for them. It doesn't matter. So we don't need to worry about the US government shutdown. Park that to the side. In other words, is Bitcoin really going to move up from these levels and start taking claim to the upside? Well, let's just break down the logic in terms of open interest and where is the money. Like I said to you all before, the only real open interest zones for me are all the way up here, okay? That's what we really need to see Bitcoin doing, taking claim towards that zone. People are adamant that Bitcoin will not succeed 125,000, yet you're welcome Bitcoin to take 200,000 and 300,000 and 1 million. That means they would surpass 125,000. Or is it just going to gap up to that point? I don't know. Like, it's some guys in crypto just blow me off. But this is good news. Oldest American retailer rolls out crypto payments in 660 plus stores. So that's great news. Stable coins. I don't like the fact that they're using stable coins. I don't want that because then that's just solidifying the idea of what they've been saying in the US Congress about cryptocurrency payments and overall with stable coins, that they want it for just payments only. No, we don't want it for just payments, even though the stablecoin market is still not really doing too much here. We got 308 billion, no real update per se, but it's up a little bit and it's just soaring. And that's just showing you where the commitment's going. It's all about stable coins, you know? So just pay attention to it all, guys, in regards to stable coins, which leads me over to another asset. Let's go and check it out. Circle. So Circle Internet Group, where we at? Currently trading sideways, not really doing anything. It's not going anywhere. But again, there's another partnership coming into play with Circle, I believe, which is going to then start fueling some more interest in Circle. I'm telling you, they're going to build the partnerships. And then once the earnings per share start to get released, we're going to start seeing the impact that Circle is having in this story of accumulation of partnerships. They need to build the base. This is what you call farming the earnings per share. All right. If the projection, it's not really done yet, but they haven't really got a projection for their earnings per share because we don't have that much data on the earnings itself. So building up all these partnerships is going to naturally then be reflected in its price. It will. You just got to have patience, guys. Simple as. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do before I get into a little bit of Bitcoin price action, I'm just going to quickly go over those stocks that I said I was going to talk about. First one, ASN. I've been told to have a look at this. This is a computer tech company which provides management consulting technology and outsourcing services to businesses and government agencies. Pretty cool, but relatively expensive. It's got $170 billion market cap. Currently taking a little bit of a tumble to the downside. But looking at the number of funds that hold this is massive. 4,358 funds are trading this. Funds hold around 41% of the stock that is on float. And we go into its earnings, you can see that it's consistent earnings per share, quarterly earnings, all right? They're not really seeing drawdowns. Even though price action's going down, that's accumulation in my opinion, okay? So they're building positions, all right? The earnings and the sales are doing very, very well. We start to see a contraction, which we sort of have seen, but sales have been plus 5%, 8%, and 7% in each quarter. Earnings have been 2%, plus 12%, plus 9%. So there's nothing saying that it's accelerating, okay? So as a key thing for you all, just to be mindful when you're looking at stocks is this. Every quarter, you need to see a company's quarterly earnings, right? Quarterly earnings have to be accelerating, okay? So that means if they did earnings of 10% and sales of 5% in the one quarter, you need the next quarter to show earnings of 12, or more, and sales of 10 or more, for example. And then you go into the third quarter, you can then see earnings of 15, and then you've got sales of 15 as well. All right. That is what you call acceleration, which means that something is happening in the company. There's the service, there's the demand, people want it. And this right here is what is going to fuel the idea of the stock going up. Okay. If you've got a stock that's dropping, but the earnings itself and the sales are doing well, it's in accumulation. They're going to get ready to pop this bad boy at a later point because fundamentally, everyone has every reason to buy the stock. Okay. Now you wonder why, when you go and buy yourself altcoins, what's the reason you're buying altcoins for? Is it because of fundamentals like this? Go and get me fundamentals on altcoins like this. That gives you proof rather than market cap, but proof that the market cap's going to stay like that because they've got the statistics and the fundamentals to back it. With altcoins, you're relying on dev staying, right? Market cap, Cadena, whatever it was, Cadena, rug pulled, done. They've stopped trading now. They've closed it off. These guys have an obligation to make sure that they serve the investors, okay? So they'll do everything. That's my point of view on things, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm quite frank with you. Anyways, the next stock, before we get into Bitcoin price action, where are we at? Someone asked me to look at this company, AVXL. Anavax Life Services. So, life sciences, medical biochemical develops novel drugs to treat Alzheimer's, central nervous systems diseases, and various types of cancer. Okay, so $9 a share, average daily volume 1 million. That's okay. Just less than a billion. Well, yeah, it's not. It's okay in terms of market cap, but it's basing out. Okay, and it's a medical biochemical bio company itself. And usually these companies do well during times of uncertainty. All right, because ultimately the sad truth is people will always have nervous system diseases and people always have cancer. And these companies will always keep on getting funding to just keep researching and researching. So medical and aerospace and defense stocks will always do well during times of uncertainty. Okay, so that's something to take into consideration when you're looking at these companies. Only 183 funds hold this, and they've been stagnant between the last quarter in December at 162 to September 25, nearly a year, and they've only managed to achieve only 19 funds interested in this company. Okay, so that's not really great. We need to see accumulation from funds and interest in funds to say, yes, you know what, we're going to be buying this stock. Okay, next one, we got another one called VEC, VECO Instruments. All right, so look at that. Nice flavorsome move right there. Good base right there. Accumulation on the move to the upside right there. $29 a share. Again, electro semiconductor company. Manufactures metal, organic, chemical, vapor, and ion beams deposition systems for LED and wireless devices. Okay, so let's make the assumption that you've got this story with Google. All right, so let me give you a little bit of game. Google wants to get into bed and create cloud computing services. So what they're going to need, they're going to need networks, they're going to need hardware, peripherals, and all of that stuff. Okay. So what you got to do is, what's the obvious thing? Who's going to obviously make money? It's Google. Okay. Google and the company that it gets into bed with. That actual company, as I said earlier on, is Anthropic PBC. Okay. So Google and these two guys are going to make money. Right? But Google's price is too expensive, all right, for some people. So what do? We have to dive into the companies that are going to actually service this, all right? So go and research companies that would provide systems that will allow cloud computing to be created as such, all right? That's how you navigate it. NASDAQ, what on earth is going on? Let's have a look. We got some movement in the chart. S&P, as usual, just does a little bit of a move. No problem there. NASDAQ just completely sweeps the ranges to the downside. Not really. Well, I'm looking at it on order flow, so it looks pretty aggressive. But you guys look at it like this and think, it's nothing to it. But they have swept the Asian session low. But at the all-time highs, it's pretty mad that is itself. Let's have a look at Bitcoin for a second. Bitcoin just behaving, doing the XRP formation, not really giving us anything. Quickly going into the order flow for Bitcoin to switch it all up for you and get this done at speed. Here we go. So we've got not really that much happening on the order flow perspective. We've got this cluster all the way up here. And so a lot of traders were liquidated just now. But you've got this cluster of orders up here, 80 million, 4 million as such. But there's not really that much liquidity in the book. Look, It's hardly any there. And you guys have been watching me do these live streams and you've been witnessing me look at this stuff. There's not that much liquidity hitting the marketplace. Going into the order flow here, just have a look at where we are in terms of liquidations. Refresh, there we go. So Bitcoin just swept that bound of liquidity right there, and it's now reversed back up. So that's a bit sad, given that they've just taken $322 million worth of long liquidations. It's still a little bit more down here at 286, but 106,150. I mean, NASDAQ will need to continue to go to the downside right now to suggest the idea that we're going to have a problem with it all. But it's probably... When it does this sort of behavior, guys, I don't get too concerned because it's the start of the market. There's that beautiful violet vector candle. I hope it turns into a red vector candle because then that can give us a clue as to what is likely to happen. But let me just go over to Google right now to see how Google is faring. Here we go, up 1.3%, 1.4%. So that's okay. They like the sound of what's going on. If they don't close this gap, then there is strength to try and make the recovery and claim out the all-time high. I have no reason to believe that they can't do that. Going into Netflix, it's down 8%, man. Look at that. I mean, if discount comes into play, and you've got to understand the story as to why they are down, the tax dispute with Brazil. So once the tax dispute is resolved, everything goes well for Netflix. And then they'll just bring it back up again. You know? There's nothing wrong with the company per se. It's just a tax dispute, which means resolve it, and then everything will be good. Okay? NASDAQ, stop it. I love the way NASDAQ moves. They call it crack for traders. Anyways, Bitcoin is sustaining itself. And a little bit of a trick for you guys. Whenever NASDAQ at the start of the open drops down aggressively, wait. Just wait until the Brinks box is complete. And I'm talking about this box right here. Starts at 2 p.m., which is, well, 32 minutes ago, okay? And finishes at 3 p.m., all right? Just wait for that box because you're going to know what they've done in the pre-market, the MOO orders, the market open orders. When they get triggered, that's what you're seeing happening right now. It's just assets going all over the place. Everyone's trying to exchange, all right? Give it a chance. Let it pick the orders up because if they really do want prices to go up, they will need to bring it down first. Like I said, we need the market to drop if CPI is going to be good for us because then that will solidify the idea that interest rates are going to get cut. All right? Cool. Tino, what about cloud, crypto cloud storage projects? There are only a few of them. Siacoin is about to launch a browser-based service which you can get full terabyte of storage for $1 to $2. That'll be crazy. That will be interesting, you know? Really, what you got to look for, guys, is if I was to give you guys... Look, I've said this before, okay? When you're looking for altcoins, all right? I mean, any coin outside of Bitcoin is a meme coin. Sorry, I said it, but it's true, okay? But if you're looking to invest in altcoins, right? Rather that, go and invest in stocks that are listed on the US stock market related to crypto. Because then you'll be looking for the right thing. You'll have fundamentals to back it, okay? NASDAQ is taking a slump to the downside. Any reason as to why? No. There's nothing coming out in the market or news-wise. So when no news is really coming into play, that means that we're on... Yeah, it's a manipulative move. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this play right now. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Anyways, how is ETH a meme coin? Figuratively speaking, as in Bitcoin is the king kind of thing. Okay, it's not a meme. I knew it was going to trigger someone. You know, what? Russia nuclear drills. Nothing's come out yet. No real news has come out just yet. But the MOO data is showing that there's a lot of selling. There's a lot of sales coming into play on Nvidia, AstraZeneca. Yeah, there's a lot of sales. Mag 7 sell market came in at 15 million on the market open orders and 2 million on the buy side. So this is good news for us, though. We need this vectors because they did exactly the same thing yesterday in the Brinks right there. So red candle formation, ladies and gentlemen. Are all alts clones? They are cheap Chinese knockoff. Okay. Yes. Did Trump say he declared war? Oh, that's FUD. No, I don't think it is FUD. I'm not seeing anything. And I've got decent news sources that will come out. This is the start of the MOO data, which is the market open orders. So once the market opens, what orders are coming into play? Let them get filled. It doesn't matter where it's going to go. Just let them get those orders filled. Milad, what's good, my bro? Go to the VIX. Sorry, but that's not that much. If the volatility index doesn't spike aggressively, then I'm not worried about anything because this is just orders getting filled. If you want to pay attention to something on the VIX, go to the UVIX. Okay, this is the futures, right, of the VIX chart. If that keeps going up, stock market goes down. All right. So right now you're seeing that the stock market's going down, but the VIX ain't really moving up, even though it is up. The VIX is up 0.84%. It's not really moving up, but NASDAQ is a volatile asset. What goes down is being engineered to come back up because there's no chance on earth that New York will be coming in and buying at the highs. They will need to bid it lower, get those orders programmed. Once they're filled, they will then start to offer in the opposite direction. Everything except, yes, this is true. Any other questions? MKR stock. Like, I just, sorry, I missed a bit of the stream. Okay, let me quickly have a look at that MKR stock. MKR. Maker? Oh. Is it MRK or MKR? MKR. Is this a current crypto? Is this a cryptocurrency? Because I'm not seeing anything. No? Let's have a look at that. Hold on. Manuka. I'm guessing I'm right with that. Yeah? We'll go with that. Manuka Resource. I've got no data on this. I don't know if that's the right one. Sorry, my bro. Actually, yes, we'll look at that one. ISR. Intuitive Surgical. Big boy company. Oh, well. Well. What do you want me to say to you, man? What do you want me to say? Something's happened here. Look at that, man. Something's happened. I've been giving you guys flavor on that. Earnings per share up 30%. All right. So they've absolutely smashed it. That is brilliant. This. Do you remember when I said to you a few moments ago, when I said to you about that ACN company or AVXL? Okay. Right. This company here. Hold on. Is it this company? Yes. Look at this. Earnings and sales are doing really good. Yeah. At the bottom, earnings and sales are doing good, right? Now, look at Intuitive Surgical. What do you notice about the difference between the two? Both of them had shown price was dropping to the downside, but they were accumulating, all right? ISNRG, Intuitive Surgical, has obviously done well on its earnings per share. It's shifted out to the upside. Look at the actual quarterly and sales down at the bottom, doing fantastic, all right? So just keep an eye out on this. Could actually pop up. Different company, different services, okay, different back. If you look at the actual volume, like 4,385 funds play this. That's really good, okay? Intuitive Surgical, 4,100 funds play it. So they've evenly matched, but these guys have done well on their earnings. In other words, when that company does declare its earnings, you're going to want to anticipate the same story because it's going to then lead to something like this, okay? So take that into consideration. NASDAQ, you look juicy. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope, hold on, carry trade. If the Bank of Japan's carry trade unwinds, do we get another crypto melt up like in early 2021 when yen funding flooded risk assets? Well, it was 2024 when we had the subprime the actual carry trade unwind because Bank of Japan increased their interest rates. It's when they start buying dollars that's the problem. All right. If they start buying dollars because dollar yen is appreciating too much and it hurts trade for them, then we have a problem. But given that you've got this new prime minister coming into play and she's meaning business with fiscal policy, then that means it's going to end up being something that's going to cost Japan in the future. So what they're going to do, they're going to increase the cost of the money that's being consumed at these levels and they're going to increase their rates. Dollar dominance is going up. When they increase, dollar goes down, stocks go down, crypto goes to the downside on the carry. So yeah, that's something to watch out for. They are going to increase their interest rates. I believe it. I believe it. You know, not sure. What's wrong with what? You're not sure about what? Looking at that company. Not sure why I'm looking at this company. I don't know what this company does, okay, other than it provides outsourcing services to business and government agencies. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is look at the earnings per share, look at the quarterly earnings, okay, down here. Look at the basing of price. It's dropping, it's dropping, it's dropping. People are selling it. They're accumulating it, okay? Lots of funds are playing it, 4,358, okay? So once their earnings per share comes out, something good's going to happen. It's going to go up. That's the logic. as long as they sustain their earnings per share, because their earnings per share year on year are projected to increase. So it's going to take a little while, but you buy stocks to hold. Okay? Cool. CIA. Nice touch. Anyways, mad love and respect, guys. Please trade safely. Platinum members, I've got some flavor for you with the NASDAQ. She's going to pull something lovely today. Take care of yourselves, gang, and I'll be speaking to you all